Welcome. A judge in Detroit is currently in hot water after texting a bare-chested picture of himself to a female bailiff that was discovered by her husband. They say they are now filing a complaint against Judge Wade McCree. My guest is retired Superior Court Judge in Santa Clara, California, Eugene M. Hyman. Judge Hyman, welcome back.
Thank you.
So this is some bad judgment, apparently. Talk about what could happen in this case.
Well, you're correct. However, interestingly enough, I couldn't tell from the media whether he was handling civil or criminal cases. From a civil standpoint, sexual harassment traditionally requires a history of misconduct. In other words, if it were a sole incident, that wouldn't, from a civil standpoint, would not be sexual harassment because it's not a pattern.
Right.
That's stated, however, from a judicial misconduct position, one act, depending upon what that one act might be, would be sufficient to receive some kind of discipline or consequence. You need to look at the canons, and each state has canons of judicial ethics. California's, for example, are independent of the American Bar Association's model canons. California has decided its canons of ethics. Many states, not having the resources that California does to have large committees to decide these kinds of things, many states have adopted the American Bar Association model rules. Many states, with respect to the bar, have accepted and adopted the American Bar Association's model rules of attorney misconduct or attorney's ethics, but California has determined its own canons. But all canons, regardless of whether they were developed by a state independently or developed by the American Bar Association, have a canon that requires that a judge shall not behave in a way that brings disrepute to the judiciary. And it would appear that if this picture was received by someone who was offended, that potentially would violate that statute or that canon. Now, what's also unclear to me is whether the deputy was offended or if only the husband was offended. If the husband was offended and if the deputy wasn't offended, then that probably would not be misconduct because, after all, the husband was not the intended recipient. And if, for some reason, the judge had a reason to believe that the deputy would appreciate this type of picture, because, after all, it's not pornography, it's a picture of the judge who is naked from the waist up, not from the waist down, then that would not, in and of itself, be probably be misconduct. It would be misconduct only if it was something that was not wanted by the recipient, who would be the deputy. Regardless of whether the person wanted it, it probably is not a smart or bright thing to do. But then it really depends upon who the intended recipient is and whether that person wanted the picture or not.
I mean, it clearly shows some strange judgment here. But
absolutely.
Because given what we've seen in the media lately with how quickly a text can turn into a problem for somebody. But then again, what if it is deemed that this is improper? What kinds of penalties does he face, do you think?
Well, again, it would depend upon a state basis. Some states, a judge can be suspended without pay for a certain period of time, based upon a decision of the Chief Justice of the state Supreme Court, or based upon a decision that's made by an independent committee comprised, depending again upon the state, of some states it's purely judges, some states it's judges and lawyers. Some states, it's judges, lawyers, and citizens. Some states, the appointments are made by the Chief Justice of the state Supreme Court. Some states, like California, the Chief Justice gets appointments, the governor gets appointments, the presiding officers of the House of Representatives and the state Senate get representatives, get to appoint representatives in some kind of a proportion, again, depending upon the legislation that's enacted. In some cases, this legislation is enacted by the legislature. In some cases, like California, it's enacted by a constitutional change or a change by the people at a statewide election where they make a decision based upon a proposition, to have some kind of a commission or tribunal to make these kinds of decisions. Now, in terms of a consequence, in California, you could receive a public letter of approval, a private letter of approval, or be removed from office. It would depend upon his prior history, if any, assuming that this is his first incident of doing something inappropriate, and given what the nature of the behavior is, and assuming that it was only this once, it's probably going to be a public letter of approval indicating that his conduct is inappropriate. And again, depending upon the authority of the agency that has the authority to review the behavior and to give an appropriate misconduct decision, he might be required to attend classes or counseling.
You would never do anything like that, would you?
Not if you're smart, you wouldn't.
Okay.
Because just when you think that, again, everything, as you've indicated at the beginning, everything goes viral. And you just can't assume that anything is private anymore.
Yeah, when you end up on David Letterman, you're going to have a problem.
And the other thing is that, of course, unfortunately, people... I mean, just to give you an example, California law says that you can have attorneys as friends on Facebook. However, if they have a current case in front of you, then the ethics decision says you have to defriend them. And so the end result is that, say you're a judge sitting in criminal, and say that some of your friends are either prosecutors, public defenders, or private defense attorneys, it's just so difficult to keep up with who has a case in front of you and who doesn't, that you're probably advised not to have any prosecutors, defense attorneys, or certainly not defendants as friends.
Well, we appreciate you taking your time, because I'm sure you're busy, and there's more important things to be discussing, but we appreciate your time here.
Thank you.